Alright lads, Imperial Bodybuilding here, bringing you the latest bodybuilding news from around the world. And we start the show off today with so many questions for Nick Walker. Why did he fail? Why did he get his peak so wrong? And for me, why did he pick an unknown coach to take him into the biggest bodybuilding show of the year? So let's try and answer some of these questions. Nick posted this on his Instagram just a few hours ago. And basically he goes on, he praises the IFBB, praises the athletes. But then he goes on to blame his peak, and for me goes on to blame his coach. Basically what he's saying is Kyle Wilkes messed his peak up. He said, after the weekend and finally letting the emotions sink in, upset, angry, disappointed and feeling all of the emotions, it sucks working incredibly hard all year for the final few days to not go as planned. Now I completely understand this. But again, lads, this is the Olympia. It's not an amateur show. Kyle Wilkes, and no disrespect to Kyle Wilkes, he seems like a cool dude, but he's never prepped one Olympian athlete, never mind one of the most popular, entertaining figures in the IFBB Pro League. So why would Nick Walker trust Kyle Wilkes to prep him for the biggest show of the year, where he was potentially going to win and was one of the favourites by many, including myself? And I'll just apologise. I did get it wrong, and I'll be the first to say, just like many. But let's listen to Kyle Wilkes and his excuse.
Important part, Nick Walker, and what occurred this past weekend. And the reality of it, for those that watched the show Friday, was clearly not the best Nick we have seen to date. It was not what we were expecting, nor was it what I truly desired as a coach. So the point of this video is to take full ownership of the peak being mistimed and therefore not presenting Nick to be at what he was fully capable of being. Now, as a lot of you have probably noticed the difference from Friday into Saturday, he presented a much cleaner, Nick-like presentation on Saturday. However, the punch that we took on Friday was kind of one that we couldn't recover from in duly fashion when it comes to judging. With that said, there are a lot of variables, and I don't care to go into detail with this video, at least. I'm more than happy to, but the reality is there are a lot of different variables that are ongoing. Now, truth be told, the reason Nick and the timing was a little different compared to what we might be familiar with seeing at Pittsburgh, where I truly think it was the best Nick Walker to date, comes down to merely the fact that the show prejudging was that night. This is my first experience and go around with Nick, as many will probably understand or know. And for those that don't, it's my first time having a competitor on the Olympia stage. So
if you listen to that, lads, he goes on to blame the peak basically for getting Nick wrong. Now this is 3 or 4 weeks ago before the Olympia, and you can see on the obliques, on the abs, there's not a layer of fat or water that would have prevented Nick from looking like he did. The only thing that I can think of is that they've got lean. They were lean 3 weeks out, and then they've carved up. They've tried to go Levroni style and carb up into the show. And let's just be honest, only a pro coach, a Chad Nichols, a Chris Aceto, would I ever trust to take such approach. But again, to leave your fate in the biggest competition of your life to an amateur coach. I know Kyle Wilkes has taken some really good pros on, but to take the biggest personality in bodybuilding to the biggest show where many had him winning, look, it's suicide. And the first time I saw Nick, I knew he was off. If you had a pair of eyeballs, whether you were a fan of Nick or not, you knew just by his face alone. He wasn't confident. You didn't see that Nick Walker swagger that we're used to seeing at the Pittsburgh. This was at finals, and he looked considerably harder, he looked considerably better, but they had one day to get this right, and when prejudging's over, lads, it's done. It doesn't matter. When you're that far behind, it's game over. It doesn't matter how drastically you improve by finals, it's game over. Now I want you to listen just to the confidence which you can hear from Nick getting interviewed. You knew that he lacked confidence, and it showed on every interview that he did before the Olympia. Just listen to this, lads, and see what you think.
Now, is my next interview going to be interviewing the new Mr. Olympia backstage Saturday night?
Yeah, I'm confident that I will be Mr. Olympia come Saturday.
How's this year been? I mean, I know you do not mess up, you don't miss a meal, you don't miss a workout session. You're 100% into this sport. What are you going to bring? How frightening is it?
I'm going to bring the freakiest look anyone's ever seen. Way freakier than what New York was, way freakier than what any package was. So.
Another level, huh?
Yeah.
Now, I'm no body behaviour expert, but I could just tell you there that Nick was just giving the interviews because he had to do it. He knew, I think deep down, that he wasn't bringing his best. And every time, I remember seeing Nick 2 years ago at the Pittsburgh Pro posing. You might remember, lads. And you could see on his face. Now, in that show, he didn't even need to be in condition. But you could just tell Nick wears his heart on his sleeve. And you know, when he's off, you can already see it in his face. Now, moving on into other news. This has caused quite a little bit of controversy. One of Nick Walker's fans has actually seen Nick at the Olympia. And it says, he went on to say, "Nick, I'm not a fan, but the way you treated the fans this weekend was kind of disappointing. At the Meet of the Olympians night at the Olympia complex on Thursday night, you walked away because it was getting late. Totally understandable. But you flipped me off as well as all the other fans, which no other athlete did that night when they left." I just watched Ers Kalasinski video titled "Show Day, Mr. Olympia. My conclusion." And at the 28-minute mark, a fan told Ers that you told him to F off that night after the finals. That's no way to treat your fans. Now, lads, the reason I'm laughing is because if you've ever competed and you get 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 1 week out, your food is diminished. You know how angry that you can get. I'll give you an example. I went to McDonald's once. I was at McDonald's and someone, I think the lady, she put tomato ketchup on my fries. And I said, I don't want ketchup. But she did it anyway for some reason. And I couldn't tell you how enraged I was. I'm talking about Chris Benoit style. So these fans need to understand what these bodybuilders go through, and they need to respect it. And don't get me wrong, some fans are just deluded and just don't see it. And look, if a bodybuilder's pissed off, I don't care if I'm a fan of his or not, the last thing I'm going to do before one of the biggest shows of his life, I can just tell by his face that he doesn't want to take a picture. So I'm not going to ask him. And to be honest with you boys, this is why I love Nick Walker even more, because he's no BS. He doesn't try and pretend to be the nice guy. He says how he feels, and if that means he needs to tell you to F off, then so be it. Let's listen to this. This is quite funny. And at the end of the day, it's all banter. You see these guys here, you know, I think they thought it was quite funny. They saw the funny side of it. So we need to chill, relax, and understand the nature of the competition.
We just having to say
the
here.
boys walking behind those girls. Yeah, I know what's up.
Any chance we can get a photo together?
Yeah, let's go. Appreciate it. Thank you so much, brother.
We saw Nick Walker earlier. He told us to
And lads, if you get a chance, please go and look at the finals of Nick Walker. He was definitely bigger than Pittsburgh and New York. Maybe not as conditioned, but I do think that Nick still has potential. I honestly do. I still think he can win the biggest shows in the world. Can he win the Olympia? Even if he turns up shredded, full, hard, dense? I don't know. I don't think that this is a physique that the judges want, personally. But let me know what you think in the comments, lads. Can Nick Walker come back under the right coach, under the right guidance? Can he come back? Let me know what you think. Now, this was a strange one. In the next segment, I want to talk about Chris Aceto and Dave Palumbo. Now, after prejudging, something has happened with Derek Lunsford backstage. We don't know what this is. There is speculation that it was an anxiety attack, but we don't know. Now, Dave Palumbo, he really annoys me just the way he is. He obviously knows what's happened and he's trying to probe Chris Aceto, who comes across very honourably. He's protecting his athlete and he doesn't give Dave anything. This is quite admirable because he protects his athlete. He's a man of his words and he seems like a genuinely good person. So let's just listen to how Dave's trying to extract the information. And Chris Aceto's response is quite funny. And also look at the reaction from Wesley Vissers. It's a funny scene, so just watch this, lads.
Had a little trouble backstage. What happened? Because I know you ran back there.
I don't know.
He had some, I don't want to, Dave,
something happened.
You're asking a question that's a private issue that is not.
Well, you went back there as his coach and motivated him and gave him this coach's speech, is what makes you a great coach. You can talk about that.
I'd rather not.
All right, you'd rather not. Let's talk about Hadi Chupin.
So as you can see, Dave Palumbo is trying his hardest to extract information from Chris Aceto, but Chris Aceto stays loyal, and I really have a new level of respect from Chris Aceto. He's always come across humble, always protected and spoke highly of his athletes, never disrespected anyone. He's a true gentleman of the sport, and I think Nick Walker would do very well under Chris Aceto. Now, Derek, you would never know if there was anything wrong with Derek. I don't think it was physically. It had to be some kind of mental disposition that Derek was going through. But Derek, look, he looked great. This is, for me, his best shot. The side chest, absolutely great in the chest. Full, very polished. The side leg, those striations. Derek looked $1 million, as the Americans would say. And I think, like Hadi, he goes into shows thinking he will win every show that he does. And I'm not a fan of Derek. I don't rate him as a Mr. Olympia, but he's a one-time 212 champion. He's a one-time Arnold Classic, two-time Open champion. You have to put some damn respect on his name, lads. He is a phenomenal champion, and I do think that he deserved the victory. Now, next up, lads, I want to talk about my countryman, Samson Dauda, who was probably the most disappointing bodybuilder. Talk about Nick Walker. For me, this is the most disappointing bodybuilder of the show. And Mr. Olympia, usually, when he loses his title, it's usually by one place. And Samson fell all the way down to 4 places. You see him in the back double here. He literally went back to 2020. Now, Samson's game plan obviously was simple. Fao Dobby had said it before. His plan was to come in as conditioned as he could, because everyone kept saying, if you can just bring in the condition. Now, I can't believe that someone hasn't seen his body eating itself away and said, okay, we need to stop now. We're definitely lean enough. At the Romania guest posing, Samson looks small, but he looks even smaller at the Olympia. This is really bad guidance, and I do think that he needs to just change his coach. You see him in the most muscular here. Lads, he looks like a straw stick man of what he was in 2024. I want to show you a video which I think was his best look of all time. The 23 Prague Pro. Lads, this is Samson Dauda. The best Samson is the behemoth. He's never going to come in condition. He's never going to get the Hadi or Derek thin skin. That's just not Samson. His strength is when he comes in gargantuan, 300 plus pounds, like Nick Walker. But Samson carries the silhouette, so he doesn't need to worry about his structure. But when he brings the mass, it's undeniably, you cannot look at him and not give him first place, even if he is slightly out of condition, because the size, the density, the shape, it's so much. When you compare him to just a couple of days ago, he's a shadow of his former self. He looks stringy. I do think he's improved in the arms. They've got more shape. But just that overwhelming size, it just wasn't there. Even on the legs, and Samson's got world-class quads. They were downsized. Honestly, lads, I don't know how his wife hasn't seen him. And this has been a bit of cognitive dissonance on her part as well. They've obviously thought that they've brought the best package, or they were bringing the best package to date. But Andrew Jacked, if you look last year at the Olympia 24, he made Andrew Jack look small, and Andrew Jack is not small, but you look at him in the back shots, it's really sad to see. And again, you could just see it on Samson's face, the defeat as soon as he walked on stage. So what do you think, lads, with Samson? What does he need to do next year? Because I'm sure he'll come back, and he'll come back a lot better, but what does he need to do in order to get his crown back? Let me know in the comments. And speaking of Andrew Jacked, there is breaking news from Muscle Discord, who is a very reliable source. Andrew will be doing the Poland Pro, and then next year he will be doing the Arnold. This is strange. We have, in just over a week's time, we've got the Prague Pro, which will include heavyweights like Keon Pearson, Martin Fitzwater, And if Andrew Jack was to jump in, surely this would be a victory for him. Maybe Keown would win, that is debatable. But just looking at the physique here, this is a really improved, to say the least, bodybuilder. And unlike Nick, you know, he got his head down. He didn't post every week. You didn't see anything from Andrew Jack. The only reason I don't think that he will be Mr. Olympia is because of the side shots, the side tricep, the side chest. The only thing that he needs to do is work on his posing. He has the physique. But for me, the likes of him, Rubiel Mosquera, and other bodybuilders like Good Vito, they need to work on their posing. They have knockout poses, but they're not balanced because you can tell that they do not practice their posing art. Andrew Jack, I think that he could take the Olympia if he tweaks the side shots, because every other shot is pretty much world class. Let me know what you think, lads, in the comment section below. Can Andrew Jack win the Olympia 2026? Yes, he needs to improve the legs, I'm well aware of that. Yes, the back as well, but the front shots are incredible, and that's why they call him the Mona Lisa. I hope you enjoyed the Olympia as well as the video. But let me know, lads, about Nick Walker. Where does he go from here? Does he change coach? Does he take a year off? Let me know what you think. If you haven't already, leave a comment and a subscribe, and I will see you soon.